Hello everyone, I'm Zahid from Talks at Innovation Valley podcast show. Welcome everybody. Today we have very amazing guest, Dr. Muhsinah Morris, who is uh, Director of Virtual Reality Project at Morehouse College and also the CEO of Metaverse United. We are so lucky that today we have such a talented lady, and you wouldn't believe that, but she is so hardworking in many things. She will tell a lot of things about herself. So, Mohsina, first of all, I really warm welcome you to the show.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm so grateful to be here.
So, today our topic is metaversive teaching and learning in higher education. But before we jump to the topic and questions, Mohsina, since I was following you on the LinkedIn for last many months, I guess more than 1 year, I guess. And so, first of all, I and my audience would like to know your personal story, your schooling, your higher education, your entrepreneurial journey so far, and how you got here so far.
Awesome. So I'm gonna try to make it short, but it's not been a short journey. It's actually been one that I couldn't have crafted myself. I always say, definitely led by God. Born into a family of a young man who had spinal meningitis at the age of 4 that left him brain damage. So when he was 8, I was born. So he had already been ill and determined to be profoundly mentally retarded was the diagnosis that he received. And this was in 1974. Um, so my mother decided not to institutionalize my brother, that he would be raised with his family and his siblings, which was something that was unheard of because he was cognitively 18 months. And she kept him with us and we were raised with him. So as a young child, I developed a lot of empathy, and I was also very curious. I wanted to fix our family. Like I knew that there was like a veil of sadness somewhat, especially for my mom, in terms of all of the things that she had to do to make sure that all four of her children, because it was four of us and I'm the third of four, were well, and that we didn't, endure any hardships or diseases or illnesses that would leave us also incapacitated. So she was really strict about our eating, about what we were surrounded with. And I'm grateful for that because she gave us a real healthy start before people were organic. But she also fostered and nurtured our love for God, our love for people, our love for ourselves, and our love for our community, because she was able to create a community around all of her children in that way and foster all of our gifts. So my father also was that way too. Really, he bought me my first computer, which was a Commodore 64, and I spent time playing video games for the first time in my home and actually doing some word processing that was available. And that to me was so wonderful and unique. And so that creative side of me and that technical side of me came from my dad, who worked in telecom. He was an auto mechanic for Southern Bell, who now is AT&T. Um, but he did that for 30 something years, and he made sure that when he heard about new technologies that he introduced it to his family, even though he wasn't a tech specialist per se. He wanted to make sure that we had an opportunity to learn about technology and about emerging technologies. And so he would always share what he learned at different business meetings, because he would go, even though he was the blue collar worker versus the white collar worker. He wanted to make sure that we had those opportunities. So I had parents that fostered that. Up until I went to college, I went to all black schools. And I know black schools to be nothing but excellent because I was required to be excellent in everything, not just sports, but also in the classroom. And that was something that was championed by many people in my community. So I had so many heroes to look up to in the face of, you know, being what was considered to be underrepresented or minority. I didn't feel that way. I always felt empowered. I always felt like I had everything that I needed. I didn't feel slighted at all. I felt like I was always on track with the right amount of rigor, with the right amount of people cultivating my gift. So my teachers were really intentional about making sure that I was in the gifted program, that I participated in science events because my mom advocated for, hey, this child is different. Hey, she needs to be tested. She might need, extra supports. And so I had everything that I needed to in public schools to be successful. Um, and then I went to Clark Atlanta University for my undergraduate chemistry degree. I always knew I was going to be a chemist, but I knew for certain when I went to Fernbank Science Center, and I had a professor named Dr. Weiss, and he was a typical chemist with drinking out of a beaker, big burly white man with white hair and big glasses, pocket protector with the pens, and I got a 97 out of his class. I didn't know that I would, but he really was able to see me all the way through graduate school then. So like I stayed in Atlanta and went to graduate school at Emory University, pursuing a biomolecular chemistry master's and PhD. While in school, I decided that I would moonlight as a business student and learn about project management because I knew that in the role of being a PhD chemist, they always put you in a supervisory position. And so I tried to make sure that I understood how to run projects. And that really helped me through the last couple of years of my degree because that's when I learned about marketing. I learned a lot about technical writing. I learned a lot about how to manage projects and be on timelines. And so I applied that to my own journey and was able to finish my degree while having a 10-month-old child and three other children at home. And that was really important to me. So I've always had to be very multifaceted because I was married young and I was married to a guy that was in the tech industry as well. He's a network design engineer. Um, and he's also a hobbyist gamer. So he gamed just like I gamed when I was younger. So we always had something in common and always loved storytelling and role playing games and things like that. So all of our children grew up in this kind of household where gaming was the norm because that's how they learned how to read. That's how they learned how to make decisions. That's how they learned so many different things. So I have five sons. They're 27, 24, 17, 15, and 6 years old. And all of them are different kind of tech people or gamers, if you will. The oldest is an electrical engineer slash UI UX designer. The second one is a cybersecurity specialist, and the third one is still in high school. He's a junior. He plays basketball competitively. He's very good, and he's also a scholar with a 3.8 GPA and 1130 SAT score. So really proud of him. Um, and we're looking at colleges for him now. And then we have he wants to play at the collegiate level too. We have my 15-year-old Seth, who you were telling me about, who has autism, and that really changed my world. And I allowed my research to intersect. Um, how can I put more inclusion for those who are on the autism spectrum into STEM and into the workforce and into tech, into jobs that will give them a quality of life beyond when their caregivers are alive. So he's really given my life purpose and shape. So being a special needs sister, then being a special needs brother has made me be a little bit more entrepreneurial, a little more innovative about the way that I approach life and how I approach my work. Because I don't want to miss out on anything when it comes to them. But if they all intersect, then I have an ability to include my children, my family, and everything into my work. So it doesn't ever seem like I'm working. It just seems like I'm living a great life. And then I have my 6-year-old who was a great, wonderful surprise. His name is Cameron, and he is into sports, all things sports. And he was also an early reader. So all my children started reading at about 18 months. And all of them have, you know, great hobbies and things like that. So I have a great family. I have a great support system, and my mother, dad, my siblings, everyone rallies around one another to make sure that we uplift each other. So I that's really my journey. I'm now a professor at Morehouse College. I'm also the Metaversity director of one of the first metaversities to exist in the world. I really love this program because Morehouse College is a historically black college and university that serves Black young men ages 18 to 23 primarily, and it's a residential full campus experience. We do have an online program now, but we have 2,200 students that matriculate through our campus and live on campus and work on campus. And it has been just a joy to have them. They call me Dr. Mom. And I let them, I tell them the mom means molder of minds, and they agree. So now they say mother of the metaverse. So I like that too. But that program we have now, we started off with three courses, and it was four professors all coming together to implement this in the spring of 2021. And so we started off with history, chemistry, and biology. And then we've now moved on to like having 13 faculty members giving 13 to 14 courses a semester, having reached 600 plus students, having given 30 courses over the course of these many semesters. And we're also doing experiences, so we uplift the student experience as well. And so students get an opportunity to participate in things like a mindfulness practice, meditation Mondays. They participate as student ambassadors that help with demo activations for the education business department, but also for our Candle in the Dark Gala, our largest fundraising gala. And they do the commencement, metaverse commencement as well. But we have so many different layers of things that we're doing. I do run my own research lab, the Morris Research and Innovation Lab, and I have my own business, Metaverse United, helping people find where they belong in the metaverse. So I do a lot of things. I don't do them all at once, but um, when I do them, I try to make sure that I do everything as excellent as possible, and that I give my full attention and heart to it, whether it's my kids, my family, or my businesses, because I feel like everything that I do, um, first of all, that my faith guides me, but everything that I do is a blessing because not many people get to look at themselves and be proud of who they are. And I can look at myself every day and be proud of the woman that I've become, the scholar that I've become, the mother that I've become, the wife that I am. And that is honor. That is something that you don't get in this life much. So I'm really, really blessed.
Mohsina, trust me, your journey is so inspirational and unbelievable. I mean, I salute you for everything you did in your life. I mean, uh, I'm sure that my audience will learn a lot and they can relate that what really hardworking is. I think there is some problem on your side with your voice or something like. Can you mute your mic? I want to test it.
Okay, great.
Yeah, there is some problem with your audio because there is unmute. Yeah, when you unmute, there is some voice like a motor is running. It's for the last few seconds, and now it's.
Hmm. So I know I have a gaming laptop, and sometimes, with the fan, you can hear, but usually
That was the voice of fan. Now it is no. Now it is okay.
now it's okay. I don't know.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. It's clear. There is still a fan voice behind, little bit, kind of 10 or
Is
20%.
let me see if I can go
No
back to
problem.
the audio.
Wait, uh, we will edit this part later on. No problem.
Okay. Let me test this. Okay, that's working. What about it says echo cancellation is on. Let me see.
Are you using Apple or some other company?
Apple.
Okay.
No, why it's doing that? It's not. It didn't do that yesterday. Yesterday was we had a clean, and it was live too. So I don't know why I'm getting interference, but
Now it's better.
is it? I'm not sure.
It's better. We can go ahead.
Okay.
Let's go.
Yeah.
Okay. Very inspiring journey, Dr. Mohsina. So, Mohsina, can you please little bit tell more about Morehouse College and also your project of like organization Metaverse United? What actually these both organizations doing?
Okay.
What you want to add?
So at Morehouse College, I am an assistant professor in the education department. We're in the Division of Professional and Continuing Studies under the instruction of Dean Claude Hutto and my department chair, Dr. Nina Gilbert. Both have been very supportive of the work that is being done in the virtual reality project, which is what it started off to be. Our provost, our former provost, Michael Hodge, he actually championed and wrote the first grant for the virtual reality project, and he was the one that recruited all of us as teachers, along with Deshante Carmen, our former project manager. And now our new provost, Dr. Kendrick Brown, is really supportive of the work that is happening in the metaverse, and so is our president, David Thomas at Morehouse College. So we have gotten an outpouring of support from our administration to continue this project. And so I became the director of our Metaversity in 2021 as well. And since then, we have increased our offerings to students. We have increased our ability to be in different subjects. So, business and entrepreneurial mindset. We are in sociology, social problems, and we're in African American studies. So, we do an intro to African American studies course. We're also in history, world history, but we did an intro to African diaspora course as well this year. We're in journalism, multimedia and storytelling, and advanced multimedia storytelling. We have professors that are in biology doing general biology and microbiology as well as men's health. We have me as a chemist, and when I was in chemistry, I taught advanced and organic chemistry, analytical chemistry, and general chemistry, all in virtual reality. Now in education, I teach exceptional learners and as well as a research course. So I am coming up with an intro to XR technologies for the classroom course that will be taught in the fall as well. So there are a lot of courses that are being offered primarily in immersive virtual reality. So every student receives a VR headset, a swag. This is my swagged out Morehouse one that our ed tech partners, Victory XR, they have another store, Victory Enterprises, that prints these, and they printed those for our Morehouse program. But we all of our students at the beginning of the semester, when they find out they're in a virtual reality class, receive a headset, and they keep it all semester long, and they're able to access their courses, but they're also able to do different things with it. We don't let them know like, oh, you can only go to class, and then we give them free range to use it as if it's their own personal device. And they can purchase games. A lot of them choose to purchase the device at the end, but some of them turn them back in, and we reset them and clean them and get them ready for the next semester. But we've engaged our alumni as well, like I said, with the galas that we do, with the commencement services that we do, but just trying to bring all stakeholders that are, invested in these young black men to the table. We have funding from Unity Technologies to actually help our students learn how to code using Unity, how to augment spaces, how to develop culturally appropriate avatars, how to create culturally responsive spaces in the metaverse in their discipline. So our student ambassadors are working to learn Unity and to implement Unity across our disciplines that are teaching courses. So Victory XR creates our digital twin and other spaces that we use, as well as artifacts for our classes. However, we want our students to also engage in that process, and so they'll be learning how to create their own 3D objects and artifacts, as well as augment the spaces and actually create the 3D spaces using Unity. So that's been a really promising program, and we have a professor that is over that is also a Morehouse alum, Zach Thomas. So we're doing a lot of great things at Morehouse. And Metaverse United was my way of I tell my students all the time, innovation is what's going to catapult you forward in your career and in your life. Nobody got rich ever. on a salary, but innovation and your own creativity and your own ability to create worlds can change your life. And so I leaped and created my own company, Metaverse United, doing educational consulting and helping people and organizations and educational institutions find where they belong in the metaverse space. And that's basically providing them a roadmap, doing professional development for their professors in service or pre service teachers as well, and making sure that they have everything that they need to get started.
Perfect, Mohsina. You are doing a lot of things.
Yes, indeed. And I enjoy everything that I'm doing.
And Mohsina, can you please define, is
I think I lost you.
Mohsina, am I audible now?
Yes, yes, you're back.
Perfect. Okay. So I was asking Mohsina, the term metaverse is mentioned on internet a lot nowadays. So can you please define what actually metaverse is with some examples? And also, can you please define what is the relationship between the virtual reality, augmented reality, and metaverse? And what is the difference?
Okay. That was a real deep question. So the metaverse for me, I always say it's the world's greatest playground. But to be honest, it is what we describe as shared persistent spaces that exist in virtual reality, immersive virtual reality, or augmented reality. A metaverse can be two dimensional as well. So people consider Fortnite, Roblox metaverses because they're virtual worlds where you can um, be in these real time 3D spaces, these persistent spaces that exist. So that means that, like, if I put an apple down on the ground as my avatar in this space, when you walk by it, just like in the real world, you will see that apple on the ground and you can pick it up and do whatever you want to with that apple. So that space persists regardless to who is coming through, just like things in the real world. If we move something out of place in the real world, if somebody comes by, they can actually see it in real time. So that's what real time 3D is. It's just that it's in a simulated environment. Virtual reality or immersive virtual reality takes place using this head mounted display like this. And so you are distraction free. You have no view of the outside world in this particular device, and everything that you see is simulated um, and three dimensional. You can pick up objects, you can move around. There are some haptic feedback that happens in the controllers. So you do have two of these controllers, one for your right hand, one for your left hand, that can track your arm movement and things like that and help you move your body around. Augmented reality is you augmenting the world around you. So that means that um, if I wanted to see if this chair fits, this chair behind me, if it fit in my space when I was purchasing it. Amazon actually has augmented reality, things like that. And so then you can check and see in the right dimensions does that chair fit. And so it'll project a simulated image into your space. Now you can see it on your mobile device, and it's the most accessible tool because everybody usually has a mobile device, right? And you would hold it up and then you can see how that chair fits in that space. Augmented reality is also what we consider filters. So it's these Snapchat filters or these filters that you see on these reels or on Instagram. All of those filters are considered an augmentation of reality. So you're changing reality by adding something that is simulated onto something in the real world. So it's like an overlay. And then you have mixed reality devices, like you have your the Microsoft has a mixed reality device, and so you can actually the Quest Pro would be considered a mixed reality device, so that you can see or have pass through where you can see the real world objects. You can touch the real world objects and put things on those objects when you create boundaries in that space. So mixed reality, virtual reality, augmented reality are all just terms that we use and put under the umbrella of extended reality. Extended reality technologies are gateways to the metaverse. So being able to be in these synchronous environments with other people, interacting, socializing, working, playing, you can be either in a completely immersive environment. You can augment the space and you all can be in this augmented world together, or you can have a little bit of both in the space and mixed reality devices. But when we consider the metaverse now, as I think about the term and how it's evolved, the metaverse is really an umbrella term for all the alphabet soup that we have. Instead of saying, I work in AR, VR, XR, MR, AI, IoT, ML, that's machine learning, like and all these other things, you can just say, I work in the metaverse. I work on technologies that are emerging in the metaverse space because all of those technologies will be used in some kind of way to effectively build this metaverse space. Um, and right now, the metaverse is really just the internet, the embodiment of the internet is what I call it. It's like being able to walk through the internet and be surrounded by all of the things that you see in the internet because you still very much so need an internet connection. So it's the next iteration of what our web experience will be.
All right. And Mohsina, how do you see the metaverse, metaversities, augmented reality, and virtual reality transforming the traditional classroom experience in higher education?
First, I think it's so important that our young people have this in their classrooms because they're already there. And during the pandemic, young people were forced to be in technology in a way that was not conducive to how they play, how they learn, how they work. They basically were just sitting behind 2D screens and being accounted for and just having to sit there all day and watch different videos or things like that. And that really was not, that was a passive learning experience for them. And it still was putting the antiquated learning model of the classroom and what a traditional classroom is into a space that we consider to be um, more futurized, but it wasn't. So students really got turned off from technology, which they should have. I mean, they were forced to be for 8 hours a day sitting behind computers, and that's not really a whole lot of fun. Being able to give them experiential learning, tangential learning, all of these experiences in the metaverse will allow for their minds to be able to have a more active learning experience. Now, I'm a teacher that always believes in active learning. My classroom is quite noisy all the time. My students are always moving around, and I mean, even my college students, but I think that's necessary because when you are actively moving, doing, and applying the knowledge that you're learning, you're actually able to retain that knowledge more. And that's what being in the metaverse and metaversive learning can do for students, but metaversive teaching for even the professors means that we're facilitators of knowledge and we don't have to always have all of the answers, but we can lead them to the right resources because this is a subject matter expert that all students have already. And so by saying that we know everything in the world about our subject is false, first of all. And it's not depicting a true picture of excellence and what learning looks like for our students. So it's really important for us to model what good understanding and resourcefulness and education and learning look like for our students. And that's why metaversive teaching and learning is so important for our educational systems transformation.
And what advantages do you think metaverse based learning has over traditional classroom based learning?
Opportunities. Opportunity to see yourself aligned with technology, regardless to what your discipline is. And I think that that's going to become necessary as our baby boomers leave the workforce. We have not even seen what jobs are going to be there for the future. So then, how can you prepare young people to be ready for a future that technology is increasing in ways that we have never seen it done before? So jobs that we think are going away and oh, the jobs are changing. Yes, they're changing, but that means you need a new skill. So how do we teach these skills? And one of the things that my lab is doing is looking at 21st century skill building, the four C's: collaboration, creativity, communication, critical thinking, and then I added a fifth C, compassion, as a way to really catapult forward the further learning and the development of our young people in education. And that is really important because they go into the workplace and they don't understand how to solve a problem from start to finish. They might start off strong, but they don't have a lot of follow through. They need to learn how to truly collaborate, and they do it in their games all the time, but they need to learn how to do it in a professional educational setting. They need to understand what information can flow to and from other people and how to utilize it. They need to know how to protect their own intellectual property and then use that to start a business. They need to know how to create multiple streams of income. They need to understand prosperity and what that means to have generational wealth. They need to know that the sky's the limit for what they can achieve, and that they in their creative selves and beings can produce the things that they want to see in the world, and that is transformative.
Right. So, Mosina, are there any potential disadvantages or challenges using the metaverse for teaching and learning? Keep in mind that people are so afraid of innovation. Sometimes they think, okay, AI will replace the teachers, this technology will replace the teachers, that technology will replace the teachers, and sometimes many people don't accept the innovation. They are resistant.
Yes. So nothing is replacing anybody. Human beings are so integral to everything that we do that humanity is always going to come first in terms of how we engage with our young people. However, because we don't have the large numbers that we did in the workforce, as the baby boomers are leaving, and they were the largest generation of workers that we had. So baby boomers are retiring and they're also passing away. And so we have to be able to do the job of 4 to 5 to 6 people. There are already teacher shortages. Students are already dropping out at rapid rates. There's already learning loss. How can we set our students up to succeed in a society where things are changing so rapidly? And that is one of the things. One of the biggest limitations and challenges to doing metaversive teaching and learning is that we still don't have good internet connection, especially in rural areas, small towns, or in certain places in the world. So that is a problem because they need a stable connection to increase the impact of their experiences and the ability to connect and learn. And while they can reach out to other people, so you can be in Mexico and taking a class in Spain, you can be in France and taking a course in Puerto Rico, you can be anywhere in the world and taking a course somewhere else, which gives you more access to other learning opportunities that you otherwise wouldn't have because of where you're geographically located, and maybe you don't have the ability to move or um, to attend in person those classes, but you can do it in the metaverse space and still have that presence. But you also have to have a stable internet connection. You have to have low latency in terms of the streaming. And so we have at Morehouse partnered with T-Mobile for providing hotspots for our students. I call the students that are entering college now the connected student. They are connected to up to 5 devices, if not 6 at a time. And that means that we don't have the capacity on our campus to really serve our students because it's stressing our servers out. Because everybody's streaming, everybody is playing a game, everybody is doing work on the internet. So we're really stressing our capacity for internet connection and connectivity. But if our students have access to hotspots or devices that actually have can connect to hotspots or 5G technology, then we're making headway. And so our students have that ability. And so we've seen better experiences because of T-Mobile's investment in Morehouse.
Right. Mosina, how do you envision metaverse based learning changing the role of the instructor in the higher education?
So I think higher education just needs to change overall. Like I think the stage on the stage model of we come to this institution to gain knowledge from these particular scholars because they know everything in their subject is wonderful. But I think that it's also limiting in some capacity and that we need to expand our horizons. We have other types of technologies that can also, like AI. I mean, they can pull from data pools that we have no access to necessarily and can put together resources and references for you to be able to follow. You can train AI to do almost anything that you need to do that is automated. And so for the professor, the goal is to be understanding of what emerging technologies exist out there for teaching and learning, and then to implement a portion of them in their classroom. Now, you don't have to do it all, but do the thing that you're most comfortable with that will really enhance your lessons and what you're doing, because your students, for one, are already utilizing it and they need to know how to do that responsibly. We need to make sure that there's a moral compass that is guiding these types of uses of technology, especially AI, machine learning, and neural networks, and things like that. So we need to make sure that our students have humanity at the forefront of all that they're doing, and they're not just putting out um, technologies and things and that can cause harm. That's one of the things that we don't need, and that's why you still need the professors. But you need the professors to be aware of all of the things that are capable that these technologies are capable of doing, being, and existing as in their classrooms.
So, Mohsina, what types of courses, programs, or subjects do you think are best suited for metaverse based learning?
I'm biased because I'm a chemist and I can see molecules, but people usually can't. So, because people can't see molecules, being bringing the molecular world to life, I think is one of the most important use cases for the metaverse. Um, Imagine that instead of just sitting in this room, you were able to see all of the part. It probably would scare most people, but I mean, if you know it's a learning experience, it wouldn't. But if you knew what the molecules were doing, how they were moving, and how these gases are moving all around you, um, and creating all of these experiences that we see now, I think that it would be really really cool. But it also increases your visual spatial intelligence, so students are able to really understand these concepts of chemistry better. I also think for history, it's really, really good. If you could go back in time, wouldn't you want to? When you want to see what World War II was like, actually by being in a battle versus just reading it on the page, that is really, really cool. I think that also it helps build these empathetic, emotive experiences for young people when they're able to access um, certain levels of creative freedom. Like they're able to augment their spaces to be exactly what reflects their own personality and their own being. I think it's like walking into a huge vision board. So, subjects that allow students to create in art, music, I think those are also really good ways to utilize it when you don't or can't have access to certain high tech devices. Like for instance, in our multimedia storytelling class, students learn how to set up interviews and things in studios with all these very expensive camera equipment. Well, we don't have that equipment on campus, but they can still learn how to use it. Um, Using AI in metaverse spaces is going to become really a wonderful tool. I know Victory XR is doing that right now with their metaversities. They're doing simulations and increasing capacity for the instructors through AI technology. So that is going to be something that is really new and interesting and exciting that is taking place and can be utilized across all disciplines, but primarily in CTE, but also in medical careers and things like that, so that you can have this back and forth with patients, AI patients, and I just think there's it can be used in all cases. To be honest, you just have to find whether it's a project or whether it's just a piece that you use or some kind of enhancement. I think it can be used across all disciplines.
Right. And Mohsina, how do you think the metaverse based learning can address the issues of accessibility and inclusivity in the higher education.
Say that one more time. You were breaking up a little.
So, am I audible now?
Yes.
Okay. So, Mohsina, how do you think metaverse-based learning can address the issues of accessibility and inclusivity in higher education?
I think that the metaverse can give you ways to differentiate your instruction for different types of learners. Learners who need a full immersive experience, a distraction free environment, students who need personalized instruction, students who need the presence of their instructors, who need to be on journeys and experiences with them. Those kind of students that learn by doing, those are the students that we are hoping to capture. There needs to be more done in terms of developing content around accessibility for the neurodivergent community. Like I said, I'm an autism mom, so for me, it's really important that we're creating inclusive and safe spaces for those who are on the autism spectrum, but also for people who may not be able to experience the metaverse the way that we all do. Um, People who are blind, we need to do better with our blind, deaf communities. We need to do better with people who may have physical limitations and disabilities and won't be able to like hold joysticks or move around in that way. We need to become more agile and smart about the way that we're implementing these technologies that are used for our young people so that we are more inclusive. But then there's also the digital divide. There's a lack of access to these devices. I mean, these devices are not excuse me, they're not cheap. They're $300, $300 to $400. Really, it's for $399. So $400 price point um, for these devices, and this is one of the least expensive ones that are on the market, the MetaQuest 2, and even that is a whole lot of money. But I say that if an institution of higher learning could just get one on campus and start to just allow students to experience it, exposure is key to driving creativity. And if they're never exposed to this new technology, then they'll never know. They'll get out in the workplace and feel like we failed them. And that is one of the things that I fervently do not want to do. I do not want to fail the future of who we are because they carry on our legacy.
Right. And Mohsina, since you're going through this metaversity and also the metaversive learning and teaching, so what is the feedback of the learners and educators, and especially the parents and students?
They love it. They love it more than I mean, I thought I loved it. I felt like it gave me back my joy of teaching and learning in a way that I didn't know was possible. But my students are so intrigued by the fact that they can learn like this. And they always say this: if I knew that this existed before, I would have been a better scientist. I would have been a better student. I would have been more engaged. Even parents who we have like a lab school that works with our Department of Education at the Utopian Academy for the Arts, and Dr. Artesius Miller, he is the founder of that school, and he's also an adjunct professor in our education department. But his educators, we started off getting them used to just being in the headset doing a mindfulness practice. So looking at educator wellness and how that correlates to student achievement. And once they got used to being there doing a mindfulness practice, they were they wanted to know like, now how do I teach in this thing? And so then we started doing professional development for them, and now they're implementing it as in different disciplines in their classes and using it as an intervention for disciplinary issues. So it has found a way. There's so many different ways that this emerging technology can enhance the learning environment, and I call it opportunistic reality. You're giving not just young people, but our scholars, us. You're giving us opportunities that we didn't even know existed. You're giving us ways to display our scholarship and knowledge on a platform where we have full autonomy and agency. And that's one of the things that we try to get our students to have is that they own the space, that they understand that they can also create in this space, and that those skills are valuable. And so parents are no longer saying, I need you to get off that game, because they find out their children are taking courses in this headset, and they're like, oh, you're in class. Let me, tiptoe away. Another thing about it is when you were on Zoom, you see, like, you can see the back of my house. A lot of students were not on camera because they didn't want their homes to be shown, and they felt like it was an invasion of privacy. When you're in the headset, you don't have to worry about that. Your avatar presence is presented perfectly with good hair all the time and good skin and nice clothes, and ready to learn and do, and that kind of thing. And so it takes away that anxiety of, what do I have on, what does he have on, I don't have this and they don't have that. That kind of thing in the classroom doesn't exist, because everyone kind of is one and the same. And even though you might have your own face on your avatar, for the most part, you're already ready for a class. Like, you don't have to worry about maybe somebody walking in the background or noise or anything like that. You can kind of drown that out and be in class and be focused.
All right. And Mohsina, what skills or competencies do educators need to have in order to effectively teach in the metaverse?
Creativity. You have to think outside the box. You literally have to have creativity and follow through. So, for when I recruit teachers to teach on our Metaversity campus, I always think about how can they correlate their student learning outcomes to effectively deliver a lesson. And if it doesn't work for what they need to deliver, then we don't do it. Um, if the technology hasn't gotten to a place where they can do the things that they want to do, then we don't do it right now. We wait, and we wait for more development, but we make our requests kind of known to our partners to see if it's possible. And I keep my ear to the street as to, like, where the technology is going, so I know that I can bring in more instructors. But creativity, follow through. I always say grit. This is a gritty time where we need people who are ready to, like, fail forward while doing this. I mean, I don't get it right all the time. Technology is not fail proof. But all of those are learning experience, and ways to engage one another, and to see that we are still human using technology and trying to do better for our communities and our children. So, I, for me, it's just joy. But having a good attitude is, you can have all the knowledge in the world, but if you can't see outside of the textbook, then this isn't the world for you.
Am I audible?
Now you are, yes.
Okay. And Mohsina, how do you see the metaverse evolving in the next 5 to 10 years in terms of its use in the higher education?
I see that every K-12 institution will have a XR lab where students are able to experiment with emerging technologies. That they'll have high-powered computers. So thinking about quantum computing, even, and students being able to really experience it. I think maker spaces will conjoin with these XR labs, where students can not just create in a virtual world, but also create in the real world, using their hands and tools to develop new technologies and to innovate. I think it's really important for our students all across the country, but beginning in the lower grades, K-12 education, to really understand how to innovate, how to create, and how to develop different levels of technologies. I think that our next great innovator is either not yet born or part of Generation Alpha, to be honest.
Right. And Mohsina, when we talk about the metaverse, what other emerging technologies would be adding as a value to the metaverse, do you think? For example, artificial intelligence, blockchain, etc.
All of those. So I think that we can't have a conversation about the metaverse without talking about blockchain, without talking about NFTs, without talking about digital assets, about intellectual property and how that's changing in a digital landscape. I think that we need to be talking about artificial intelligence and machine learning, and students need to be learning about neural networks, and they need to know about algorithms. They need to know data science. There's large digital data footprints that are being left all over the place. And like, what do we do with that data? What does that data tell us? How do we protect it? How do we protect people? So privacy and policy is really important too. Governance is going to be very important. Who owns this ownership? Talking about economic opportunities, all of these things in this new economy, because we'll be buying and selling in this metaverse space. And so now we need to develop a whole new economics system, and understanding how these trends work. And we're doing a little bit of that with crypto. Right now, people are learning more about crypto and how that's being utilized in this space as well. But all of it is relevant. Web3 and the metaverse, I think, can't be talked about in isolation. I think that it needs to be uh, a very fluid conversation where they're intertwined. I don't think that we can work in silos anymore, even within our disciplines, that we need to be more interdisciplinary, and that we need to work across the humanities, sciences, business, and allow our students to be um, all of who they can be, and integrate all of the technologies and not just be one monolithic thing.
Right. Mohsina, we have just two questions more, the last two questions. But I want a little bit clarity on, this word Web 3.0 is very, very like buzz uh, across the internet.
But
So what
you,
actually,
hold
what
on,
actually is Web
you,
3.0?
you went out. You went out. Tell me again.
Am I audible?
Now you are, but you were breaking up real bad.
Okay. So can you please define what is Web 3.0, and is there, I mean, Metaverse and Web 3.0, these are two different terminologies?
Are you saying VAP 3.0 or Web 3.0?
Web 3.0.
Oh, hold on. Let me see. Oh, Web 3.0. Oh, say that again. Okay, start over. Start the question over.
So am I getting now?
Yeah, I saw it. I saw it. Okay, that's what I thought you said, but I was like, okay,
Okay.
okay, do it again.
Okay, so can you please define what is Web 3.0? This terminology is mentioned too much nowadays. And what is the difference between Web 3.0 and Metaverse?
Okay, so if you know what Web 3.0 is, basically the third iteration of what the web is. So, Web 1, which I experienced, was just when we could access words on a screen on the internet. Like, we would be so mad when people put pictures up because it would take so long to load. Um, but then Web 2.0 brought along with it more graphics, more interaction between the person who was the user and the platform. So then we saw social media platforms where they were starting to use our data to drive us to certain content. So algorithms started to be developed and all of those kind of things where your computer was learning you um, more than you were learning how to use a computer. And then you have Web 3.0. And so Web 3 is supposed to give you more control over your own data. That means that you will be aware of how your data is used. You can own your data. You can determine whether or not your data can be used. You have got to be aware and cognizant of how your data is being used on every single platform that you engage with. Web3 also brings about the blockchain, which means that if you create something, so it's a protection to the creator. If you create something, then it's minted on the blockchain, and that means that it can't be manipulated, and you'll know exactly who the originator of those different works are. Um, and then NFTs and buying and selling, all of those things are different. It's putting the power back in the hand of the user versus into the tech companies. So you have decentralized autonomous organizations. You have people that talk about blockchain, non-fungible tokens or NFTs, other types of digital assets in fashion and things like that that they buy and sell in the marketplace. So Web 3.0 though gives back the power to the creator and to the user.
All right. So, Mohsina, what advice would you give to educators who are interested in exploring the use of metaverse for teaching and learning in higher education?
Call me. Now, I would definitely tell them reach out to me if they need any guidance at unitethemetaverse.com. But I would also tell them don't be afraid. Like, don't be afraid of failing. Don't be afraid that it's hard. It is hard. I know I talk about the joys and the upswings of it, but it's difficult. I have fallen asleep in my headset creating things. I have, had to call my other professors, Dr. Vereen Clark and Hamilton, and say, hey, can y'all get on with me? I know it's 10 o'clock at night and I know you got your kids, but I need help. And they've done it. We really became the ultimate team. I would call any of my team members and ask them, can you just stand in the gap right now for me? Because I need tech support in my class, and we do that for one another. So my thing is, don't be afraid to collaborate. Don't be afraid to fail forward. Don't be afraid of not looking like a scholar. You have a PhD or you have your degree that makes you an expert, and they hired you. So don't worry about that, all the imposter syndrome things of what you can't do. Think about all the things that you can do and all the lives that you can touch, and how transforming lessons into this metaverse space will be revolutionary for the future of teaching and learning and for your students. Think about the children who need to be proud of who they are and who they hope that they would be when they were young, who need exposure to these technologies and need a way out of poverty. Think about those kind of things. Think about all of the things that you can do to make this world a better place. Don't think about how challenging it is, because all things are challenging. But without it, our work will be harder. And technology is supposed to make our work easier. And I think that this does that.
All right, the last question, Mohsina. Mohsina, yes, everything is very exciting when we talk on the metaverse, on the metaversities, and on in general the immersive technologies. But when we see the developing countries or underdeveloped countries, especially in the Africa and Asia, do you think that uh, the world is ready for the metaversive learning and teaching? I mean, when you see the infrastructure, connectivity, and people's mindset and the government policies.
I think that there are so many other issues that are present in developing countries that it's really hard to see beyond into this emerging technology space. But that means that they need it even more. It means that they need people to come in and help them develop these infrastructures that will allow them to interact with other people around the world in a way that is going to drive their economy and change their economic position. I think that emerging technologies and innovation is a way to give back freedom and liberties to people in developing countries and take away the hardship of learning, for so many people. I think we have so many creative people, and it's all about what you're exposed to that gets you to where you are. I am who I am because of what I was exposed to. And so it's important to think about these advantages that we have and how we can use them to help other people develop an advantage, because at the end of the day, we're all human beings that want the same thing. We want our children to be healthy, we want our communities to thrive, we want to be healthy, we want to live a long great life, we want to be successful, we want to be happy, so we want the same things. And so it's necessary for governments to start really paying attention to how they can implement this, even like I said, one headset at a time. And I think that it's important that the tech companies that have the resources are going into these developing countries and helping them. I am grateful for the support that we have from Meta, Qualcomm, Unity Technologies, T-Mobile, the National Science Foundation, even Qualcomm. I think I said Qualcomm, Meta, Unity Technology, Southern Company, like all of these companies have invested in Morehouse College, which is really important because we're young black men. But it's also equally important for Morehouse to go beyond their borders. So we are doing some things, partnering with rural communities, partnering with developing countries, and moving into more purposeful partnerships, not just within the tech sector, but seeing how the sector can help us uphold the UN Sustainable Development Goals of quality education in the Caribbean and African countries and developing countries. That is so incredibly important to our mission and to how we will continue to make this technology useful for everybody in the world.
Mohsina, trust me, today's conversation was very, very insightful. And I'm sure my audience will learn a lot out of all this podcast. In the last, what inspiring message would you like to give to all the potential entrepreneurs, university students, teachers, and all my audience? Any inspiring message that inspires you?
None of us know what we're doing. None of us really know what we're doing. But there is an all knowing, all seeing presence that guides all of us. And if you really tap into your creative being, if you really sit still with yourself, you too can discover exactly your purpose for being. And I think that that's really important. I think a lot of times we think about all of the material things that make up the world, but we don't think about the source from which those things flow. And we need to think more about the source from which those things flow in order to actually get to the ideation of manifesting that in the material world. And so my faith is what really guides me. And I think that people should lean into their faith, lean into who they innately know that they are. And also, um, I would say take that leap. On the other side of all the anxiety, all the fear is a good time, joy, and you learn what you're made of. So take on the challenge. Don't be afraid. Know that fear is something that is really not real, and it's an emotion where faith can't also exist. So would you rather live in fear? Would you rather walk in faith? And I think that people want to walk in faith. They just don't know how. But guess what? None of us do. We just do. So sit still with yourself, learn who you are, be very self aware, and move forward on the ideas that come to you that resonate with your soul, with your spirit, with who you are as a person. Because deep down, we already come with everything that we need to be successful. We just have to sit still enough and let the busyness of the world fade by us in order to really develop that thing. And know that your path is already very laid out, and you'll find that on the other side of all of that fear are people who are waiting to guide you, to uplift you, to encourage you, to collaborate with you. So move forward with your dreams because you can never be who you hoped you will be if you don't move forward.
Uh, Mohsina, thank you so much for joining the show.
Thank you
It
for
was
having me.
fantastic.
Well, I'm excited to be here. And like I said, if you ever need anything, you ever need me, reach out. I know I'm incredibly busy, but I try to make time. I get to people iteratively as I can. But I'm always gonna get to you. Like I'm always gonna get to you because I feel like people